Good evening. So about a week ago I put up a video that showed how to track abilities that have multiple charges, things like Angelic Feather and Shield Block, and I think Word of Glory works like that. And there are a handful of abilities. I think most classes have one or two of them. Now what we created was something that basically displayed what this little Angelic Feather does. You just cast it and you get a little timer that works basically the same as the Blizzard toolbar thing would. I put the import string in the comments, so you can just copy and paste it if you want to import it. Just hit for paste bin and copy this first line. And then all of the code is in there as well in case you just wanted to read it. So you can copy this and import it into weak auras. Say I'll delete this one. So just make a new one, choose import, and paste in your thing. And that'll get you the starting point that we used. It's set up for Angelic Feather, so if you wanted to use a different spell or ability, just come through all of these triggers under the custom tab here, or under the triggers tab here, and just make sure you change the spell name from Angelic Feather to whatever ability it is you're trying to track. So you'll have to go through each of these, and once you've done that, all of the standard display stuff should work. The names will be correct, the icon will be correct, and all of that stuff just works automatically once you've changed the spell name in each of these triggers. Now, this works pretty well. It does kind of what you would expect for something that tracks Angelic Feathers if you're used to the Blizzard UI. But most people don't want just the standard functionality, or they wouldn't recreate it with weak auras. What I'm going to do is look at a few different ways we can customize this to have slightly different kinds of displays. So the first thing we can do is make an aura that doesn't just track all of them, but maybe it alerts us only when we have a full, like, maximum stack of charges. So if I have 3 feathers I want this to show, maybe I want to be using them all the time. Maybe it's an ability like Shield Block, where if I don't use it, it's kind of getting wasted. I'm not using it as often as I could, so I'm taking more damage. It's probably not a great example, but you can imagine abilities where you want to keep it on cooldown, but maybe not have no stacks all the time. So to do that, what we'll do is edit the custom trigger and untrigger, and they're just really quick one-line changes. So to make this appear only when we do not have, when we do have a full set of stacks, we need to change our trigger conditions. Right now it says when charges is greater than or equal to 0, then show. And we don't really want that. What we want is when charges are exactly at the maximum. So that's C double equals and then 3, because you can only have 3 Angelic Feathers. Now we want this to go away when we don't have a full set of charges. So we just come to the untrigger and we change it to sort of an equation or an inequality that describes that. So we say return C is, and we could write this a couple of ways. We could say like not equal to 3 or something like that, but the easiest way to do it is to just do one step back. So I would say something like don't display when C is less than or equal to 3, or less than or equal to 2, or you could write it as C is less than 3, because they're functionally the same. So when you have less than the full stacks, go away, and when you have the full stacks, you should appear. So now that we've done that, we can close this and just test that it works. So here I have full stacks, and if I cast a feather, it should go away. And then we'll see it come back when I gain a new charge here, about 6 seconds. And there we go. Now, we could also make this work sort of the opposite way, where we have an aura that is only visible when we're out of charges. So maybe I'm using feathers to make like people who are running the flag move quickly, and I just sort of assume I always have charges unless I know that I do not. And so I want an aura that says, hey, you don't have any charges, but you'll get one in something like 6 seconds or however long is remaining. So we'll do the same basic process, we just change our trigger conditions. We go from charges is equal to 3 to, well, we only want this to show when charges are less than 1, because less than 1 means we don't have any. And you could also do charges equals 0. Either one works. And then we have to set our untrigger, and so we want this to go away when we have at least 1 charge, or we have 2 charges, or we have 3 charges. So we can say when charges is greater than 0, or when charges are greater than or equal to 1. Either one of those are the same inequality or equation. I'm not really sure what we would call that. So once we've set those, untrigger to greater than or equal to 1, and trigger to less than 1, now we have an aura that displays only when we're out of charges. So we'll just use up all my feathers here. And oh no, I don't have any charges, but I can see by the cooldown sweep that I'm going to have one right about now. And there it is. And now I can cast it again and it comes back. Now maybe this sort of display isn't quite what we want because it's kind of difficult to read this icon display. It's not very exact, but we can improve that a little bit. We could come in and say, well, for starters, the custom text here is just the number of stacks we have, but it might be more useful to show the time until our next stack. So if I just change this to a %p for the text, which is the standard week aura's time remaining text, and I try it now, I'll cast a bunch of these to use it all up. And now I get a timer that's pretty exact. I have about 4, 3, 2 seconds to go until I get my next feather. So that's a little better, but maybe I think this icon isn't quite right. Maybe I want a progress bar instead. And progress bars use the same sorts of functions. We wrote them all in order to have a sort of generic aura that we can recycle into other displays. So if I wanted this to be a progress bar, I just right click, choose convert to, and I can do progress texture, which is kind of like a progress bar, but I like the regular progress bar a little better. So now that I've made that, I can come into the display tab, and maybe I'll just make it a little bit wider, so something like this. And I could make my text sizes a bit bigger, so like the time remaining and the stacks and the name and stuff are easier to read. I'll close this up. And we have the same sort of thing. When I'm out of stacks, I'll get a progress bar that tells me how long until I get my next one. So there we go. But maybe I want to see that until I'm full charged. Every time I get a new charge, I want my progress bar to go along. And then when I'm finally full, I want it to go away. So we can keep doing our edits. We can just say, well, we were mostly right. We trigger at the right time when we have none left. But we don't want it to go away until I have exactly the maximum number of charges. So we just change the untrigger to equals 3. And we keep our trigger to less than 1. And so now the same thing should happen. We'll go down to 0, and then we'll see it appear. And then we'll have this thing appearing. Here we go. Oh, I screwed that up. That's not what I wanted. I want my custom trigger to be less than the maximum. Not less than. There we go. Now here I have it at 2, and maybe I'll go down to 1. There we go, 2. And then when we get the third stack, this progress bar should go away. So it'll only be displaying when we don't have a full set of stacks. Excellent. We'll cast one. So that's pretty decent. Now, one other thing that I notice people kind of like is to display them kind of like combo points. So maybe you're building like a holy power tracker kind of display where each feather gets its own piece of a texture. So maybe let's do something like that. If I bring up weak auras, and I can use this one here, what I'm actually going to do is just import that one that I made before 3 times. So I'm going to make one here, and then I'm going to import another one, or I could duplicate, I suppose, whatever. That works too. Just right click and choose duplicate. And I'll give these unique names. I'll make this one F3 for the third feather. I'll make this one F2. And then I'll just space these out a little bit. So I'll take the first one, I'll put it here, take the second one, keep it in the middle. We'll take the third one and drag it off to the side so we can see them sort of independently. Now we just need to set our trigger conditions. And so we could do this one of 2 ways. One thing we could do is have the first one on only when I have 1 stack, then the second one comes on and the first one goes off. And that'll be on until I have 3 stacks, and then it'll be just the third one. So I could have different textures, like maybe counting up, maybe I have pictures of text where it's 1, 2, 3, and I want that to display. So the way I would do that is to just come and edit the triggers for these. And the first thing I'll do is I'll do my first feather. So I want this to display when I have 1 feather, which is just exactly equal to, so double equals 1. And I want it to go away when I have not equal to 1, which I think in Lua is bang equals, or maybe it's this. Tilde equals is Lua. Sorry, I've been at work all day and I'm programming like 5 different languages right now. So the tilde symbol, the key above tab while holding shift on US keyboards, and then equals 0. So when it's not 0, I want it to go, when it's not 1, I want it to go away. And then we can do the same thing for 2, so we just expand the text editor. I want this to display when I have exactly equals to 2, and I want it to go away when I have not equals to 2. And then we'll do the same for the third one. So I'll expand this. And I want this to display when I have exactly equals to 3. And I want it to go away when I have not equals to 3. And let's maybe convert these to texture. So we'll just convert to regular texture. And we'll do the same for all these, just convert to texture. Close. And the last one, right click, convert to texture. And still keep all of these functions that we've written, so we can still do things like convert them to other things or whatever. But we'll just choose these, and we'll maybe use, I don't know, what do we want to use for texture? Maybe let's pull something out of like the power aura sets. Power aura separated. And we'll build up something. So maybe we'll start with, let's say this one. This one's on the side, I guess. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll choose the second one. It's under power auras. Separated. We'll choose maybe this one. And then we'll do the last one. Convert to, or sorry, choose. We'll go to power auras separated. And we'll choose this bottom one, I guess is the one we need. Nope. There we go. Sure, whatever, that's good enough for now. I'm just going to close this because I don't want to waste too much time. So here I have 3 stacks, and I can see this one is displayed, but as soon as I use it up, I'm going to get one in the middle. And if I use up one more, I get this one on the side. And then if I use up that one, I have none. And then they'll recharge and kind of blink across the screen. So there's the first one. We'll get the second, and then the third. Come on. There we go. There's the second. And we'll get one more, but I'm not going to wait for it. We can trust that it works. Actually, I guess I will wait for it. There we go. So now let's maybe make one that's sort of components. So rather than just having one, then the next, then the next, we'll have them sort of build up into a custom display. So what I'm going to do for these is put them all in the same location. So I'll just set the offset to like 0, 0. And I should have probably put these in groups to make them all the same. But whatever. This one will be 0, 0. Actually, just to make this a little easier, I think I will make a group and put them in there. So I'll just make a normal group. And we'll put these into that. So now I can move them as a unit. We'll call this feathers. And maybe on the whole set, I'll just make them really big. Something like 256 by 256. There we go. And I can see, so we have the first one, the second one, and then the third one. The third one is not displaying because it's the wrong one, so I'll just choose, and it's probably this one up here. There we go. So now we have these 3 here, and maybe what we'll have is every time we have a feather, it'll build up this shape. So all we have to do is set our trigger conditions to come on at the right time. So the first one, we want it to trigger when we have exactly 1, which is good. And we just have to change its untrigger. We'll make it go away only when we have less than 1. Less than 1. Done. And then we do the same for the second one. The trigger stays the same. We want it to be on when we have... actually, it doesn't say the same. The custom trigger for this is when we have exactly 1 or we have more than that. So it's actually greater than or equal to 1. and then our untrigger stays the same as less than 1. And then for number 2, trigger is greater than or equal to 2. And our untrigger is less than 2. And finally for the third one, same thing. We want it to, I suppose, greater than or equal to just for the sake of consistency, but because 3 is the maximum, that's the only time it can display. And then when we have less than 2 or less than 3, then it should go away. So hopefully I have my 3 feathers here, and if I cast these, first one goes away, second one goes away, third one goes away. There we go. And there they start appearing. And then maybe one last thing we want to do is maybe add back that progress bar. So we could just duplicate one of these, maybe the first one, and set the trigger conditions to have sort of a grouping that does the timer for us. Because I've already covered that, I think I'll just leave it out, but that would be like the only other thing I could imagine you'd want to add. And obviously you can also convert these to like 3D auras or like, what are they, 3D models or text doors or whatever. But I think that covers sort of the general set of use cases that people would have. That's like every possible combination of trigger that I think would be useful. So hopefully that didn't run too long. Make of it what you will, and good luck.